So again, I introduce myself. My name is Kulakov Anton. At this very moment, I work in Rusal company, and actively I'm using trees, and I developed this very direction in Rusal company together with my colleagues. So this very report is the result of the operation and work on automation of cause-effect chain analysis. And this work is not large but powerful part of the work which we carry out together with our colleagues Alexander Trantin and Mikhail Rubin on the development of the software complex Campina trees package. So as of now, everything is available in our open source, what I will be talking about. So I will send you again the web link in the chat box if you're interested. I can do it personally. So besides my colleagues, which are co-authors, okay, of course, I'm very grateful to the colleagues which were participating in the testing of this very module and other modules. And of course, I would like to express great gratitude to our software specialist who helped us so much, Sergey Sisoyev, one of the program specialists who can read thoughts. And Sergey anticipates your thoughts and your things, and he provides it. So our goal was not create some kind of a graphical editor to create cause and effect chains. So our task was not like that. So our cause and effect provides, so it's not just when you can do triangles and arrows. So we have editors of that very often. So we expanded our task. So our task is to create SICA or cause and effect software module to reduce the impact of cognitive bias by tree specialists when performing analysis. Those people who carried out tree analysis, you know that the source of SICA is person, because he analyzes some undesired effects and connects them. So my speech will be consisting of three parts. So first of all, we will talk about the necessity of this very work and its demand. In the second part, I will give you basic foundations which are in the bottom or in the foundation of Campina trees as SICA analysis. And of course, I will give you some example of how to use the module of cause and effect analysis. So I will give the first part of the speech. We made short research of the typical errors in cause-effect chains. So we made it out of different projects due to the fact that in Rusal we've been implementing these tools for some years in general. So we have an access to a very good selection of the projects which can use cause-effect analysis. So out of those projects, we highlighted 12 projects from different areas. And one of the criteria of this choice of cause-effect chains, different specialists on trees were making it with different level of qualification. So from the first to the fourth level of certification on system Karadidal and mud trees. So for us, maximally to understand that this problem is not in the field of lack of education, but in those mechanisms which are there in our head, which lead us to the mistakes. So the result of such research was we found 38 mistakes in those 12 projects. And I've split them for four typical mistakes. So the first one, skipping intermediate undesired effect. So the most part of it, the first column, was related to this issue. And the second one, as per the quantity, is vague wording of the undesired effect. About 30% of the whole content, and then is establishing false cause effect relationship and uncontrolled connection. So of course they are mistakes, of course, but from the pragmatic standpoint, where those mistakes lead us. So I repeat myself, those people who made Sika before and use this result, so you know that the purpose of it is the formation I cannot hear. Formation of the desire. So the first one is to get rid of the problem. So the first one is to create the task, and then we were resolving it with three instruments, but we cannot achieve it maybe because of some lack of the tools and etc. So the next tool is to make correct tasks.
Well, it seems we
have some issue with the connection of the speaker. Sorry.
Yeah, right. We have also some interruption here in the channel, the original channel. So let's stay for a while. I think Anton Kulakov will come back.
Александр, вы можете...
Yeah, is it possible for you to continue this presentation if there are any problems? Yeah, I can start it. And is it possible for Alexander to continue it? I don't think so. I'm afraid that I won't do it. Colleagues, I suggest for us to wait for Anton for another 5 minutes, and then we'll go on. Colleagues, sorry again, I was disconnected, so I will renew my
Антон, у меня
presentation.
Может быть, демонстрацию.
So I have the suggestion, maybe Ramis would do the presentation of your speech, so maybe you won't show the video, but only the sound will go from you. I don't think that it would be convenient. Let's try it. So you can see my screen, colleagues, right?
Да, Антон, видно. Только на полный экран сделай, пожалуйста.
Да, сейчас я пролистаю. Я когда
Yeah, it was right there. So we will have to speed it up.
Промежуточные нежелательные эффекты, когда мы
So
пропускаем.
we are losing some intermediate tasks, and then some kind of a blur of undesired effects that we cannot set a particular task. what kind of
Ну, какими примерами
some kind of a vague
размытых
wording of undesired effect, we can say. For example,
ну, такие формулировки, как,
this
например,
construction or
такая
this kind of
конструкция, это прям
construction.
цитату я
So this is the quote. Or unquality, low quality
некачественная прикладка поверхности. Если мы
surfacing.
предпримем попытку поставить
So
задачу,
when
то мы
we
получим
make this
абсолютную
kind of
чушь,
a
которую
vague
дальше
and blurred
нужно
task,
решать,
so
что
then
представляется
after
возможным,
that
это требует
it will lead
дополнительных
to
каких-то
some
уточнений.
kind of clarification.
Хотя, как бы,
Yeah,
казалось
it
бы, мы
seems to
решили
be
с
the
той
cause
стороны
and
анализ
effect of
провели, а нам
analysis is
еще
there,
нужно,
but
чтобы
we
было
need
что-то
to
дополнительное
clarify
еще
something
уточнить.
after that.
Ну,
So,
и
and
две
other
другие
two
ошибки, они тоже
mistakes
приводят
bring
к тому,
us
что
to
у
the
нас
waste of the
тратятся
resource
ресурсы на решение либо ложных
for
задач, либо
solving of
на
false
решение
problems
более
or
сложных задач,
solving some kind of a more
когда у нас цепочка
complicated
разворачивается, например, наружу.
problems.
У нас в системе
When
задачи бывает решать
our task
сложнее,
is
просто потому
going
что мы
outside, so
можем слабо влиять
when
на
it's very difficult to work on super system level.
Причина
So
возникновения этих ошибок, ну, я уже немножечко сказал,
the
это когнитивные
causes of
искажения,
those
которые присущи всем
mistakes
людям, не
are
только
the
специалистам по TRIS.
bias,
Тема достаточно,
perceptual
назовем ее
bias,
так, попсовая.
and
Я бы тут не
it's
стал бы очень сильно
a very kind of
широко на ней останавливаться.
conventional one, and
Существуют
I won't talk a
различные
lot about that. So there are
классификации этих
different
искажений. И,
classification
по
of
большому счету,
those
об этой теме не говорит только ленивый. Я единственное, что здесь хотел бы сказать,
cognitive
что наша
biases.
разработка, мы не претендуем на то,
So
что
I wouldn't say that we overcome this cognitive bias. It would be very
Я лишь говорю о том,
strange to
что
announce,
наша вот эта
but
автоматизация
I would say
общего
that
естественного анализа
our
позволяет
SICA
снизить влияние вот этих когнитивных
is
искажений.
able to
Потому что
decrease
в
those
каких-то
perceptual
способах других,
bias
ну,
mistakes.
то есть
We
много
know that there are a
написано
lot
про
of books about that, about cognitive
но
bias, but
способов там, как правило, не дается.
you
Просто
see, they
заявляется,
just
что они
say
вот
about
такие
the
есть, и
fact that
просто
they
из того,
exist.
что вы о
But
них знаете, вы не
the very
будете
fact
допускать
that you
ошибки.
know
Но
about them, it
это
doesn't mean that
слабо
you won't
работающая
make those mistakes. So this
стратегия.
strategy is pretty weak.
Перехожу
So I'm
непосредственно к
coming
модулю причинно-следственного
down to
анализа.
the very module of the
Прежде
cause
чем
and
мы
effect
перейдем к
analysis.
знакомству с самим
So
модулем,
before
я
that,
расскажу немного
I
о
will
механизмах,
take
которые заложены в
you
целом в
to
пирамидах
the
TRIS и в
mechanisms
модуле
in the
причинно-следственного
model
анализа в
of the
частности. В
inventive
основе
thinking and of the
практически
SICA. So in
в
the
основе всех
foundation of all
модулей
combinatorics
ну,
module
практически всех,
is the
лежит
module of the
модель изобретательского мышления.
inventive
Что это за
thinking.
модель?
So what does it mean?
Она
It
представляет
means
из
the
себя
cycle from
цикл из трех
3
этапов. Это анализ,
stages:
синтез,
analysis,
оценка.
synthesis,
И
and
на каждом
evaluation. And
уровне
it's very
вложенности
at
в проекте
on
как
each
бы
level in
там
combinatorics,
этот
this
цикл,
very
он так или
cycle
иначе
goes around and
проворачивается и
not
не один
only
раз.
once.
Ну и здесь вот приведена
So
модель
here you
TRIS, это
can
тоже
see
по большому
this
счету
module
модель
TRIS, which is the
изобретательского
model of
мышления.
the
Она
inventive
тоже
thinking,
здесь присутствует.
and it is there, of course. And
Как это выглядит
now, what is the
Компинатрис?
outlook of it?
Компинатрис
So we have the
есть
editor
редактор
of the
фраз.
phrases. So
Он представляет
it
собой вот
shows,
такой вот
it
такое диалоговое
displays
окно.
such a
У
dialog
нас
window.
существует в
We have
Компинатрис
5
введено 5
different
видов фраз. Это функция,
phrases: function,
операция,
operation,
поток,
flow,
взаимоотношения и
interrelations,
ограничения на
and
компонент.
limitations, restrictions. So when the
Когда человек
person
первый раз
deals with
взаимодействует с
the
редактором
editor of
фраз,
phrase
он
for the
хочет
first time,
защитить
he
какую-то
wants
фразу.
to
Фраза
write
— это
down
не
some kind of
какая-то
a phrase. So
законченная
this phrase
мысль,
is kind of a
нежелательный эффект. Ну,
unfinished
например, ножом разрезаем
thought.
хлеб.
For example,
Просто
we
это
cut
такое
bread
вольное
with a knife.
трактование того,
So
что
this is the
происходит в реальности.
kind of interpretation of what happens
У нас
in
есть
the reality.
второе окно.
And then
Вот внизу
under
немножечко
2, we can see
мы вот эту нашу
our
нашу
free
вольную
interpretation of
трактовку
реалity.
реальности мы
We
ее разделяем. То есть
split
у нас есть
into
субъект —
subject,
это
it's
нож,
knife,
он
so it
совершает
makes an
действие,
action, it
разрезает, или
cuts,
там разрезать,
and
и объект —
the object is
это
bread.
хлеб. Дальше, нажав на
And
кнопку
then
«Сформулировать»,
you
появляется
click the button
синтезированная
formulate,
фраза,
and then you get
которую дальше
synthesized
пользователь,
phrase when user
то есть
compares it
Of
сравнивает
with
user
what is
actually
written
is
in the first
comparing
one
what it
and
has, what
in the
they
third
have
one.
in this
то, что написано
window,
в третьем
and
окне. Тем самым
so two windows,
сравниваются
the left one
смыслы
and the right one. So and this is how we
этих
compare
двух фраз. Если
the
смыслы
meanings. If the meanings
совпадают, значит,
correspond,
пользователь
then
дальше идет делать
and the
следующую
user
фразу. Если смыслы не совпадают,
performs the next
делается
phrase
следующий цикл,
with
следующая
this,
попытка.
and
Можно
then
изменить, например,
there is
фразу, вид фразы, и тогда будет другая модель,
another
и
phrase.
так далее. То
So
есть
it
это
can
может быть
be a
много
process of
итерационных
many
процессов.
iterations. So let's
Ну,
look at
пример
an
рассмотрим.
example. In this slide, you see an initial situation, which is an example of a cause-effect chain. It was prepared by 3 specialists. Possibly some of you already know this example because it is quite a frequent one, and it is an example used very often for learning and for teaching. So it includes a chain of unnecessary effects. So first level of CCA analysis of effect and cause analysis is using this module as a graphic editor. Without a graphic editor, we cannot do without it. So this is the first thing a user can do right in the first minutes of working with this software package, with this software suite and module. Looking at the slide, you see that what we had in PowerPoint, and then this person input that it in Campino trees in the same chain. And I would like to take note that in this chain we can add operators such as or, and
Это первый уровень овладения. За полчаса, буквально первые полчаса знакомства с этим модулем позволяет это делать.
Now, the next level of using the module of the cause and effect analysis is using the phrases which were formulated voluntarily, so we can actually transform them using the models integrated in Campino trees. We had our phrase when a piece of equipment is often prepared. For me as a user, I can model those limitations for possible components. In the component limitation model, we only have an object and its characteristic. So we can have a characteristic of an object, which is a limiting one, or which is mandatory to be used. Formulating a phrase out of that is not that much different from what we had bilaterally, so and which we had there, which is when a piece of equipment is often repaired. By performing this operation, I fix the object of the equipment in the software suite, and then I will be processing it going forward. I will show it a bit later. So, and then I will do the same with the next phrase. The next phrase is different. So the working machine is polluted with a product, and well, the question was about the key process in there. Actually, the key thing is that a product was clogging the tube, and this was the functional model. So actually, I fixed 2 objects with this phrase, which is a product and a tube. Now further, I am working with the passport of this object, so I create this equipment, piece of equipment, or machine object, and I can create those relationships with other objects that are already integrated in the software. So I put those system links. For example, is it a super system, or is it an adjacent system, or a subsystem, or is it the same system? For example, it can be the case if we describe some operations. So first we perform the blank, and then the next stage is the different stage, but the blank object used is the same, so I can nominate it as the same object. After assigning all these system relationships, I then can switch to working with the second part of the module of cause and effect analysis. So this is a part of the program which is in the form of a table. All those synthesized phrases are described, are reflected in this table. They're a bit different from the voluntarily interruptions, interpretations, and we see if we put those system links together, I am then capable of looking at possible mistakes or errors which might be in the chains, and they are described with exclamation marks. So in this particular example, we see that the direction of the analysis has been breached from lower to upper, so I wanted to go top down, but then I formulated the phrase incorrectly, and I put those system relationships incorrectly, so I made some mistakes to the analysis, and then the system prompts me that there is a direction of analysis which has been breached, To be able to remove this exclamation mark, a user can open this phrase and start modifying the phrase. So a user can try to reach the best possible meaning of a phrase to be able to describe the environment, reality surrounding him. After removing these drawbacks and removing all these exclamation marks, then the chain is getting smoother, and then lower in the next picture you see how it's demonstrated that I don't have any red exclamation marks anymore. What I have is this blue box with a dot, with a dash, which says that in my analysis I didn't dive deep. I didn't look into the system, but I just clarified the unnecessary effect. But of course it can happen, but at the same time you need to always try to dive deep to be able to drill down to as deep as possible, because otherwise no additional tasks can be created. If we look at these two areas, these two snapshots, so first of all I made this first attempt without any control, and then after the AND operator I had two unnecessary effects. Then when I started looking into the CCA chain, I then identified one more unnecessary effect which I skipped, which I missed during the analysis stage. So again, after this I added at least one more key task to my pool, which enhances my way to maneuver within the project. So one is the key task if I do not address others. So and then I have an AND operator, then I will be able to address this new key task which I have identified. Beyond all that, so what am I showing? So this is the option when we have this additional key drawback, key unnecessary effect. Yet there are other possible situations. We are currently piloting this model, and in some situations, instead of narrowing down the chain, instead of enhancing the chain, we narrow it down. So by removing those unnecessary branches, when our colleagues didn't control the logics and the components, they put some possible assumptions there. When we started keeping that in order, and when we started using this additional module to control components, we saw that this chain is false, and it does not have any link to the problem. That's why we ditched this chain. And in terms of A3's project, this means that we focused our efforts on what's needed to be focused on, rather than addressing some false aims, some false tasks requiring additional resources. A few words on our results to see the key results that we reached in this area. This CCA module is currently being piloted, and it is open to all people who want to work with it, free of charge, available. And we see that the chains created in this model are more precise. During the analysis process, those system relationships are mapped, and it can be also clarified in terms of the area of possible conflicts, and moreover, we also exclude possible vague wordings or formulations. Next steps, so we need to refine algorithm for the logical comparison of phrases. Currently we have the logics, which is to compare those system relationships, but anyway we need to work on it. We have the way how to improve, and these will be our next steps for these efforts. At the bottom you can see the link which you can use to look at the tool, to be able to test it yourself. Of course, it's better to test it than just to speak about it or to look at it. I would be happy to take your questions. Thank you, Anton. Thank you for your input, and your topic is quite relevant, and you have provided this insightful description. I would like to then help you with the questions from users. There's a question of Alexander Solotkin. What's the difference between the terms of an operation and a flow? In the model description and in operations and in everything else. This is the difference. There is Mr. Rubin's comment on the transfer of flow and sending particles, and the difference is also described. More questions. I have a question as well. Out of what we've heard, and out of what we've heard about your approach when you describe functions and CCA wordings, most probably you were confronted with some linguistic specifics. Will that be a barrier for international specialists if they have to translate this interface or localize your software? Have you tried to see whether this link is there with the linguistic specific features? Yes, we have thought about it. It's currently working in Russian quite properly, in the English language. We have Google Translate translating Campino with acceptable quality. As for other values and some specific features like sentence structures and all that, we had this conversation with Sergei Sisoyev. Sergei Sisoyev, our programmer, when localized in Campino trees, there can be some issues with this linguistic aspects of different languages. It is really a task to be addressed, and it is within our scope. When we take this decision to localize, we will start working on it going forward. Thanks. Colleagues, we still have 1 more minute. If you still have more questions, Mr. Rames, I have sent a question for Anton in the chat. Marat. There is Marat. I've put my question in the chat. Yeah, you can ask it orally. Are there any criteria on stopping a CCA exercise? Where do we stop it? To the left and to the right. In Campino trees, we don't have this criterion yet methodologically. In CCA, the criterion is set, is defined. A person performing the analysis, when she or he understands that an object of the unnecessary affect cannot be changed, then you should stop it. For example, working in the plant, analyzing an effect, I can be limited with materials within the plant. For me, then I cannot influence materials. So at a plant, I cannot influence any properties of a material and its properties. This is something which requires R&Ds, and I cannot do that. So this is the scale of a problem which is there to avoid this unnecessary effect. We don't have that much time, so if you're interested, I would put those 4 pillars that we need to focus on in this CCA analysis, cause analysis. Then we should focus on 4 pillars, looking at problematic situations. This might also lead to a situation of false parameters. There is very often a situation when we nominate a problem, which in the long run does not prove to be a problem and does not interfere with the production process. Marat, Anton, I thank you for your questions. Of course, there is this discussion in the chat. You can participate in this discussion, so you can follow this discussion.